Yay! Hello, YouTube. Welcome, welcome. Today we're talking about 3 steps to heal love avoidance. And so I'm very excited for us to talk about this. As you know, this is one of the 3 roadmaps that we have to heal from love avoidance, love addiction, and love deprivation. So on the podcast, I've talked about how to heal from love addiction and how to heal from love deprivation via the roadmap, but we haven't talked about love avoidance. And I thought, let's just go live and talk about it together. So I'm so happy that we are here. Hi, Amber. Happy Friday to you. So, for those of you who are joining me for the first time, my name is Sheena Lachey. I'm the founder of Black Girls Heal, and what I do is I help women heal from the symptoms of love addiction, love avoidance, and love deprivation, and the trauma that causes it to make way for healthy relationships. And so, on this Friday afternoon, I'm going to go over 3 of the first 5 steps. The first 3 of 5 steps to heal love avoidance. Love avoidance is the persistent pushing away of people. So it is a balance of you want people to be close, but also wanting your space, wanting your distance, wanting your independence. The way that I describe it when I'm teaching it live is always I talk about this push pull, like this push pull, like I want you to come close, but I want you to be over there. And I want to be able to see you and control the distance, control the intensity, not get overwhelmed. And the thing about love avoidance is love avoidance looks very functional when people are love avoidant, for the most part, at least the women that I support and the women I work with, they are very high functioning. You know, they're professionals. They have their life in order. They have their boundaries. They have their sense of self. They are very clear with their expectations and their standards. But what they will find is that instead of their life getting better and the relationships getting better and the relationships getting more clear in regards to friendships, romantic partnerships, and family, they find that it kind of dwindles down more and more. They find that they are living in an island. They're living on their own more and more. That they have built very effectively built a life that is solo, and they have a lot of justifications and reasons why they are on the right path. And they're waiting for people and situations and friendships and relationships to prove them wrong, right? They're waiting for other people to step up to meeting the level that they want to be in. And sometimes that is correct. Sometimes what has happened is that they've given so much of their love and so much of their attention and so much of their vulnerability to people who never really deserved it in the first place. And sometimes what happens is because of that trauma, they've overcorrected to the other side. And so now no one can get through. No one can actually get to know them. No one can actually get through those barriers, right? And then when they do start to get in, the person who is love avoidant comes up with a lot of very rational receipts and excuses to why that person is doing too much, why that person is not the right fit, why that person is annoying. If that person is doing everything right, like a love avoidant person will just say, "Man, I just needed some space. Like I just needed to do my own thing. Like, I have a business, I have a life, I have other friends, I have other things. And if they want to be in my life, they just have to understand that I'm busy, or that I don't have the time or the capacity. And if they don't understand that, then that's on them." And that continues to be the refrain. Let me know if that's making sense. Let me know if y'all can relate to that being an experience that you've seen with somebody else or an experience that you've had yourself. I had one person who I was really building a friendship with, um, who told me, I was reaching out to her. We would have such great conversations. We would laugh and have a really great time. We were connecting. She was also in the healing space too. And, I'll reach out and, sometimes she would be available on the phone and sometimes she wouldn't. But she actually was familiar with my work. And she was like, you know what? I think I'm being avoided. I think, and I didn't even call her on that. I just, I assumed, I try to just assume people are going to come with their best selves unless I see a red flag. I just assume people are busy, that it takes time for people to build friendship. But she actually was the one who identified and said, you know, I'm intentionally, when you call, waiting a little bit to call you back. I'm waiting a little bit longer to text you back. I am, when we're talking, I'm making the conversation more about me, right? And so that was really great self awareness. But that's what I mean. It doesn't matter when even if you're in a safe relationship or in a relationship where there's a lot of synergy and energy and chemistry, if you do not know how to let people in, that does not automatically turn on. You have all of these internal defense mechanisms and walls that come along with what you've learned to do for decades. And so you have to unlearn them. Okay. So I saw that there were some comments. Hello again on YouTube. Um, Lonnie said, I just found your podcast and I love it. Oh, welcome. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. You're coming at just a really cool time, too. I took a poll. I don't know if you follow my stories, but I took a poll on Instagram a few days ago. And I was like, okay, do y'all want me to continue to talk about self love and self belief, which has really been my focus for the last several months? Like a lot of the podcast episodes have really steered towards believing in yourself and self love and all that stuff. Or should I return back to talking about relationships and dating and stuff like that? And the poll was overwhelming. They're like, go back to dating. So, okay, we're gonna go back to dating. That's what we're gonna talk about, dating and relationships. So here's one of our first ones back in. Okay, so if you're ready to hear about the first step on how to heal from love avoidance, drop a heart or number one in the chat for me, a heart or a number one in the chat. And while you're doing that, I didn't say the official definition that you'll see on the roadmap. I'm going over the 3 steps to heal love avoidance. Well, 3 out of 5. The full 5 are on the free roadmap download, which you can get by going to blackgirlsheal.org/roadmap. The link is also in the bio. But the official definition of love avoidance is the systematic putting up of walls in a relationship to avoid feeling emotionally overwhelmed by another person. Love avoidance may see love as a duty or obligation. Thus, relationships are experienced as an emotional drain. Consequently, it prevents true intimacy. Y'all, here's the thing about love avoidance, too, before I even get started. Love avoidance, we are magnets for a project. It seems like even if we have a hard time letting people in, we are magnetized towards people who have some type of emotional deficiency going on, someone who's going through a crisis, someone who just really needs a listening ear, someone who just really needs some help, someone who just needs like a little dust off. We somehow are so good at finding those people. And that's because part of the trauma that goes into love avoidance is that your earliest emotional relationships were very intense and overwhelming. Love really was a drain. So whether or not you were highly parentified as a child, and so you learned that to be close to people meant that you have to kind of abandon your own needs and take care of other people. Whether or not you were emotionally enmeshed in a relationship with a caregiver, and so that person would always tell you things that was going on with them personally, things that were going on within the family. You were tasked with being the mediator in the family. And as a little child, all of those things, and of course, physical and sexual abuse as well. But, you can be a love avoidant and have never had anyone touch you um, in either way before, right? It's all about the emotional intensity and overwhelm and what that does, the shock that does to your system, to your body, to your mind, to your soul. And so you learn very early on that you got to have some walls up, like you got to have some type of barriers. You have to have some type of defense, something that you shut off to make sure that nothing bad happens, right? And so Kay says, I love your podcast. Thank you, Boo. Happy that you're here. So what happens, even with all that said, this is how we grew up, right? This is how we learned about life and about love. And so when we find people who repeat that pattern, no matter what we say, no matter how much we say we want someone who reaches a certain standard or shows up in a certain way, that is what's familiar. And so, of course, love is going to look like a duty or an obligation, because either you're avoiding being intimate with people and letting people in, or when you do let somebody in, is someone that you have to overcompensate for, that you have to do more of the labor, right? You have to do more of the work. Okay, so the first step in healing love avoidance is to self-assess your availability and the availability of other people in your life. So this means you need to identify if you have been open towards letting people in, and or if you have been attracted to unavailable others. Okay, I'll repeat that again. The first step is to self-assess your own availability and the availability of other people around you. Identify, have you actually been letting other people in, letting them get to know you, initiating what's going on with you, talking about yourself, telling people what it is that you need, and do you have other people around you who also are available to you? So just as much as they share with you, are you sharing with them and vice versa? Sometimes what happens is we can be attracted to people who are just as restrictive, if not more. And so our we don't catch it at first because we spend a lot of the initial part of the relationship trying to get close to them, trying to let them in, or trying to get them to open up. We can kind of feel like, okay, this is kind of safer than some of my maybe love addictive or codependent relationships, because this relationship is growing slower. We are kind of getting to know each other. We are taking our time. But what has happened is you've walked into a situation with someone who also does not have the emotional capacity or skills to be there for you. And so you are still, even though it's incremental, and even though it is, meaning that gradual, and also just because it's small, also incremental in size, you don't catch that you are already in a love addict, love avoidant pattern until you find that you are really constantly trying to get this person to open up and let you in, and they're going to keep putting the walls down, which is going to cause you to get triggered. Or you could be doing that for other people as well. Okay. So for y'all, for those of you who are here watching live, do you feel on a scale of 1 to 5, as far as availability, how available do you feel like you are? Where 1 is, I'm open, I'll let people in. Actually, let's do 1 to 5. No, let's do -5 to 5. And I'm gonna tell you why. -5 means that you overshare, like you overgive to people. You maybe feel like you don't have any emotional boundaries, that you just kind of emotionally dump a lot, right? That you tend to lead with your traumas. You tend to lead with the overwhelm, and you need things to be like super super tight as soon as you meet somebody. That's a -5. The 1 or 0 or 1 is you're kind of in the middle, right? So you can appropriately let people in, and then also let not let in the people who are dangerous or predators. And then 5 is I'll see you when I see you. Like it's really hard for you to trust people. It's really hard for you to let them in. It takes a while for those walls to come down, and even then, you still need some time and some space in between your interactions with people. You're the friend that people are saying, we always talk about me. We don't really talk about you. When you do talk about things with people, it's things that have already been established, already been taken care of. There's not really a lot of risk and vulnerability in what you're sharing. So you might share a really elaborate story, but it's not really that deep. So if y'all were to rate yourself, where would you say that you are? -5, I overshare. I kind of give a lot when I first meet people. I give in a little bit too much. 0, 1, you're more balanced, right? You're able to let others in, and then also keep out people who are dangerous. 5 is I have no time for people, or I don't let them in emotionally at all. Okay, so we have definitely a 2, 3, 2, 2, another 3. Someone said, I'm avoidant first, but when I get in a relationship, I want to share everything and be with them all the time. So, InstaD, do you find that the people that you connect with are people who match that energy? Like, do you match with someone who's securely attached and they also want to connect with you and they also want to share things with you? Or as an avoidant, do you is it the scenario that I said, that you think that y'all are both kind of like getting to know each other slowly, and then you shift into being more as a love addict, right? And wanting more, doing more of the emotional labor and work than they are. Okay, we got 2 to 3. Hi there, friend says 4 or 5, but what if a person feels they don't know how to love, feels foreign? Love, in air quotes, the idea, but in real life, I don't know how to handle it, to recognize red flags and genuineness. Well, that's why we're here. Yay. That's exactly what we're talking about. And I think sometimes with love avoidance or just any of these intimacy disorders, we can all this is kind of based, y'all. Ooh, there goes my charger. Let me plug this in before I lose y'all. Oopsies. Um, all of our intimacy disorders, in some form or facet, in some shape or form, there's a connection to feeling not enough, not good enough, that there's something wrong with you, something wrong with love, something wrong with whatever. And so what happens is when we're looking at the problem, we can really want to work on the solution, but those negative core beliefs of like, there's something wrong with me, I need to fix it, comes to the forefront. And so instead of us like giving ourselves some grace and understanding that we're doing the best that we know how with the information that we've been given, like to your point, no one taught you how to love. That wasn't modeled to you before. Love meant maybe overcommitment or abuse or tragedy or betrayal, right? But like the healthy version of love, you've never seen it. And maybe when you have seen it, whether or not it's like a couple goal in celebrity culture or someone in your church, or, maybe there's a scandal around it. Maybe there's a breakup. Maybe there's like something behind the scenes that you find. And so even then it's like, okay, well, what is love? Like, is it even possible? Right. And so the first step is not to try to rush to the end. To not try to say, okay, I've never found love before and I don't know what it looks like and it's hard for me to trust. So that I'm just going to start trusting people. So the next person I trust, the next person I meet, I'm going to trust. What's going to happen because you haven't learned how to self assess yourself and assess the availability of other people, which is the first step? You're still attuned to the problem. So in a room of 100 people, you are going to pick the one person that you cannot trust. You are going to somehow sniff them out. Somehow that is going to be the person you vibe with the most. You're not even going to be able to see the other people in the room. I always give this example whenever it comes up. But there was one time when I was still working through my addictive stuff, and I was doing brunch with a girlfriend at what's the name of that place? The Breakfast Club here in Houston. For those of you who know, I was at the Breakfast Club with one of my girlfriends, and we were just sitting in a cafe, talking over waffles and chicken and all that stuff. And she's like, "Okay, so who in this room is attracted to you? Like, do you like who's your type?" We were talking about men in love. And so I was like, I really don't see anybody, but like pointed out like one or two people. And then she was like, well, what about him? And what about him? And he's cute over there. And when I tell you, I literally did not even see those men in the room. I I did not see those men in the room. They did not exist. When I tell you, our energy and what we are attuned to is so real. This is why we can try our best. And until we do the healing work and get support and have someone outside of us be like, hey, you, what about that over there? Even with our best intentions and best efforts and our best wisdom, there are literally things that you cannot see through your own eyes, which is why it's really important also to reach out for help to help you with this stuff, right? But yeah, I was sitting in that cafe helping people because for those of you who know my story, I was already a therapist once I started my healing journey from love addiction, love avoidance. So it was me starting all this was a mixture of me seeing, okay, being on this side of the chair and also receiving therapy and also being in 12-step meetings, there's something missing, right? And so um even though I was still helping people because with what I could see, I still needed people outside of me to be like, hey, what about this? Right? So start from the beginning. Do not try to start with trying to do everything all at once. You need to grow into it. Okay. Um, April says this is my first live. Welcome. SD says I'm in the beginning of a relationship. In the beginning of a relationship, -2. Okay, so you start off with love addictive and then you move into love avoidant. And Sadiq says, I think that I want them to be obsessed with me before I commit. Once they pass an effort check, I'm all in. So I think I attract fearful, avoidant partners the most. Oh my goodness. You don't know how to grow. So I posted yesterday a quote, and I'm going to keep going because I want to get through the other two and then save some time for questions too at the end. But I just posted a new mantra for us as love addicts. And even though this live is about love avoidance, to the point of the commenter right now, many of us, even if we're love avoidant in the majority of our relationships, when we get into a partnership, we kind of swing to the other side, right? Because we don't quite know how to do the love balance thing, right? And so the mantra that I posted for us is wait, what did I say? Y'all, let me look it up because I don't want to mess up the way that I said it because I liked my little rhythm. I want that to be one of my new catchphrases. So going slow allows the love to grow. Going slow allows the love to grow. You know, a lot of the reasons, and I'll say this and then I'll move on for real. A lot of reasons why at the beginning, if you're someone who really needs a lot of that like obsession, um, is because you need the assurance that this person is not going to reject you. You have that core fear that you're not good enough, that you're not worthy, that whatever, that you're not lovable, whatever. So when a person comes in with all that energy, right, it helps you feel safe. But the thing about that is you're the one who's in charge of giving yourself that energy. And so that way, it doesn't matter what someone does or what someone doesn't do, that's consistent with you. Because when you're coming from a deficit, all you need is for someone to love bomb you, for someone to say all the right things, to do all the right actions, but you're not able to tell that there's other red flags going on because they're attending to this really deep core wound that you have. And so you're kind of blinded by all the other stuff. So it really is about you learning how to become a little bit more balanced, um, and learning how to attend to that inner rejection so that you do not fall for those fearful avoidance. Okay. Miss Butterfly Free says the ones that like me I don't like, and the ones I like don't like me. That is because you're probably still attuned to the avoidance. Um, it's not normal for you to have people who like you just that easy. There has to be some type of drama. There has to be some type of intrigue, and I hate to say it because especially if you've gone through a whole lot of like drama and trauma, you could probably be the first one saying, "But I don't like that." You may not like it, but it's familiar to you. It's normalized to you. You don't catch it, which is why you keep falling into those patterns. So when someone, oh, thanks for the badge, Kayla. Thank you so much. Um, when someone comes with all that intensity and all that energy, um, that's what's like intriguing to you. But when someone comes and they're securely attached and they want to get to know you just for you, and that they're not trying to take something from you, and they're going to be consistent, then then you don't like that, right? Just like me in that cafe, you don't see those people, right? Like they're not even on your radar. Like you don't even have the words to say what it quite is. Like they might even be really cute to a friend of yours, and you're like, yeah, I guess they're cute, but I don't know, right? And it's because there's some inner stuff for you to work on first. Okay. So if you're ready for number two, if you're ready for the second step, go ahead and put a two in the chat for me or a heart. A two in the chat for me or a heart. We are talking about the first 3 out of 5 steps to heal from love avoidance. These are in the free download that you can get from our website, blackgirlsheal.org/roadmap. If you have been here for a minute and you've downloaded the roadmap years ago, it has been updated. So there are more steps. There's more information in the booklet. It's been more expanded. It's about 10 pages worth of information talking about roadblocks. So I really suggest for you to get it. Again, blackgirlsheal.org/roadmap. All right, number 2, second step. Thank you, ladies, for the twos and for the hearts. The second step is to clear toxic roots. So after you assess, am I actually being available to people? Right? Am I the problem? Am I the one that's pushing people away? Thank you for the badge, Niambula. Thank you so much. Oh, thank y'all for supporting me. Oh, I appreciate it. I receive it. I really appreciate that. So after you have assessed whether or not I'm the one, am I the problem, right? Is it that there are other people around me that I'm really attracted to people who are avoidant and don't let me in and aren't emotionally available? Or am I the problem? Am I the one that's actually pushing people away, right? You have to do both. After you do that, after you figure out where the patterns are, you need to clear the toxic roots, okay? So this is where you identify and clear unresolved childhood wounds that have led to unhealthy attachment styles. I'm going to say that again. You're going to clear your toxic roots, and this is where you identify and clear out the unresolved childhood wounds that have led to unhealthy attachment styles. Okay, so all of this is trauma, right? There are a lot of different avenues that people take to get into healing, right? Sometimes people have deep issues with anxiety and depression, and that's what brings them to therapy and healing. Some people have deep grief and loss. Some people may have been betrayed by other people. Some people struggle with ADHD and are neurodivergent, and that brings them to therapy. And but many of us, we can have everything going great in our life, and it is only our relationships that seem like they're on fire, and then we're like, okay, maybe I do need to get some help with that. And the thing about relationship issues is, there's no classes that are taught on it, but learning how to operate in relationships, especially if you come from a background of like a lot of dysfunction in your family life, people who don't really either people who don't talk about problems and don't talk about emotions, or people who yell all the time and fight all the time, people who cope through addictions, people who have left, people who have had extramarital relationships, people who don't have good boundaries, parents again who have emotionally confided in you and made you their little best friend, and you had to do everything, like you don't quite learn that even if that was normal for you, it didn't have to be that way, right? And that things could have been easier. And so that becomes normalized into adult relationships until you start to look at it and you're like, this might be how all the people around me operate, but this isn't how I want life to be. And so you start to look for resources, you start to look for information, you start to look for alternatives. Like, does it have to be this hard? Which is why in one of the lives and one of the podcasts, I kind of lose. I mean, I share a lot of information, so I kind of lose where I talked about it. But in one of the most recent things that I've taught, I shared how it's important that if you're trying to change your life and change your perspective, it's really important for you to follow teachers and people who are talking about the solution, not just the problem. So if you don't quite know how to love and what love looks like, are you looking at models and at people who are teaching healthy love, right? So that you know what you want just as much as you know what you don't want. And so once you are aware of the unavailability patterns, you have to look at, okay, where did this start? And start to clear that out. In my coaching program, I call this the Bloom model. Bloom, Bloom. And there's no fancy words that it starts with. I tried to like make it an acronym for something, but I couldn't figure it out. But basically, each step of my process basically helps people make the relationships flourish, because the first step is to uproot all the things that have been keeping you down. Because the idea is you can be trying to plant all these seeds about healthy communication and being open and trusting people and letting people in and making time for love and making time for connection and doing positive self-belief. But all the weeds from your past, all the trauma, all of the things that you were actively told as a child or not told as a child, all the things that you saw, all the pain that you had, all the pain that's been passed down through your bloodline, all that stuff chokes out the seeds. So it doesn't matter how many times you try to plant seeds and you keep trying, nothing can take root. And if it takes root for a little bit, it dies soon after, right? And then you're left with that frustration. So that's why before you even get deep into let's start building these relationships and revamping things, you have to clear out these toxic roots. Okay. So I see that there are some comments. Let me come and see what is here. Kayla says, I had a love avoided mother while growing up. Yeah. And unfortunately, that is such a common pattern for many of us. Welcome to those of y'all who are joining. Um, for many of us in our mother lineage, many of us can attest to that. Not everybody, but a lot of us can. Um, so, one of the common trauma that I see across the board for every single person that I personally worked with is childhood emotional neglect. And that is whether or not they grew up in mansions, or whether or not they grew up in more poverty-stricken neighborhoods, whether or not they had multiple parents and caregivers in the home, or whether or not there was a single parent or they were raised by a grandmother or aunt or a family member or cousins. Childhood emotional neglect across the board. And childhood emotional neglect is not about the things that happened to you, but about the things that didn't happen to you. All the times that you needed to be affirmed just because. All the times that you needed to be loved just because. All the times that you needed someone to just catch like the flicker in your eye when something was wrong, instead of them ignoring you, instead of them punishing you for it, instead of them brushing it off until later, instead of them being so busy, maybe they were working so much that they were just so tired. They weren't intentionally trying to be neglectful. They tried their best, but they just, sorry about that. Let me know if y'all can hear me. Sometimes my sound goes out on Instagram when I get a call. Let me know if y'all can hear me. Let me know if y'all can hear me. And then I will keep going. Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me? I know y'all still got me on YouTube. Can y'all hear me? Let me know, Instagram. Can y'all hear me? No. Okay. I'm going to come back. I hate when that happens. I wish I knew how to make that not happen. You know, YouTube. Wait for me, please. Thank you for your patience. If you're watching this on replay, you can probably skip to where I start teaching again. Let's see. All right. Sorry, y'all. I had to save a little cover photo for that one. All right. All right. How do I get to live? There we go. Okie dokie. And we are back. I'm going to wait a little bit until people come back into the room. Hi, YouTube. Hello to those of you who are joining. We lost some service here on Instagram, so I had to restart again. And I'm trying to wait until everyone who was here before comes back into the room. Okay, let me know if y'all can hear me now. Let me know if y'all can hear me now. I hate when I get a call and then I just lose sound. And I have the sound on, so I don't know why it does that. I don't know why it does that. Okay, y'all can hear me? Okay, awesome, great. So I was talking about childhood emotional neglect in the family and how that's a common thread across every person that I've ever worked with an intimacy disorder, because it's not about the things that happened, it's about the things that didn't happen. All the emotional care and attention that you needed, and it doesn't matter how much your parents or caregivers were physically present, if you emotionally were not affirmed and attended to, it causes self-doubt as a child. It causes internal wounding as a child. It causes a lot of instability, right? And because your parents and your caregivers, those outside voices are the ones that are teaching you about the world. They're teaching you what's safe. They're teaching you about your place in the world. They're teaching you what's important, what's not important. So when you are treated as unimportant, that gets internalized, right? And so what I was saying, right, when the call came through, is like a lot of times these parents who do this Sometimes it's intentional and abusive. Sometimes it's people who are trying their best, but because of their own capacity, maybe they're overworked, maybe they are in a relationship that's very toxic and abusive, and so they really don't have the resources for it. Sometimes they're doing better than what they did, what their parents before did, so they're still abusive or neglectful, but what they got was 10 times worse than what you got, right? And um, so all this came from the comment that said that this person grew up with a mother that was love avoidant, and perhaps that is what has led to her having some of these problems as well. And that is so common. You know, there's actually a book called Mother Hunger that talks about the impact of mother wounds and trauma. So I would suggest for you to check that out. Is by Kelly McDaniels, either Kelly Daniels or Kelly McDaniels. I can't remember her last name, but that might be a really good book for you to check out. You have a visitor, you need to get off. Oh, well, I hope that you catch the rest of the replay later, but thanks for being here. So, clearing out these roots is really important for you to move forward. It's really important for you to actually be able to make progress so that you can be clear, okay, is this my trauma? Is this actually true? Right? Because so much of the fear of letting people in and not letting people in is damage control. It's all about you trying to make sure that someone doesn't hurt you, get the better of you, take away your independence, take away your love, use you, right? Because of what you've seen before, because of what you've experienced. And so part of healing that trauma is understanding, okay, is this an actual threat? Is this actually something that can happen in this relationship? And if so, what is it that I need to do to amend it, to fix it, right? And if it's not them, what is it that I need to unlearn? What is it that I'm bringing into this relationship or bringing into this partnership that is based on my previous trauma that's not a real threat? Okay. Any questions about that before I give the last point, or did that make sense? Let me know. Let me know if that made sense. And then I'll move on to number three. Or if you're ready for number three, just go ahead and put number three down for me. Step number three. Three or a heart, if you're ready for number three or a heart. And for those of you who are joining, we are talking about the 3 steps to heal. No, 3 out of 5 steps to heal from love avoidance. We've gone over the first two. Thank you for the threes. April says, can you be both love avoidant and love addicted? I think that I'm both. Yes, you can. So those, all these intimacy disorders are the same side or different sides of the same coin, which is why you will go into some relationships and be very overly attached and overly committed and really just give your all and not really be able to have emotional boundaries and like discernment and everything. Like other places, you're very good at being boundaried and very good at being clear and not letting someone in and making them work for your connection instead of you giving it so easily. And then there are other relationships where that kind of goes out the window, right? And it's because all of this is based on you being unavailable, actually. So love addiction is actually a sign of being unavailable. Let's say that again. Love addiction, even though it comes with all the codependency and it comes with all of like the intensity on your part, is still a sign of being unavailable. Why? Because you're not giving all that energy to a person, to a friendship, to a relationship with someone who's securely attached and actually wants to get to know you. If you were, then that would be interdependence because you would be giving energy to someone who's mutually connected to you or mutually interested in you. You don't have to overcompensate. You don't have to teach them. You know, they're pulling the emotional work. However, you are choosing to give all that energy to someone where it's always about them. The focus of the relationship is always going to be either on what makes him or her happy or making the relationship be better. The person that you are love addicted with, and tell me if I'm wrong, the person who's ever been in a love addictive relationship Have any of those people ever turned to you and say, you know what? We're always talking about me and what I need. Let's talk about you. How am I showing up for you? What is it that you need? How can I take care of you? Like we're in this together. Has anyone ever been in an addictive relationship with anyone who has ever done that? And if they did do that, did they actually mean it or did they try to use it against you? Even a narcissist can't even get through that type of statement. If they're asking you about you, it's because they're about to tell you that what you're asking for is too much, that you're being too needy, that you're being too clingy. They're going to point to a half effort that they did one time, but it was after a fight. Um, and they're going to totally like lambast you or they're going to use that need against you in the future, right? Everyone's saying not once, never, right? So to be a love addict, the core fear is of intimacy disorders is being intimate, is being vulnerable. So when you are in a love addictive relationship, you don't actually have to show up fully as yourself. Um, you show up as what they want you to be. You're so focused on putting on the mask. You're so focused on, overthinking your words and your feelings. And am I asking for too much? Am I doing too much? Or, well, let me look at my part. Like maybe I'm the person who's doing something wrong. And no, you never get a chance to be fully you. So it's still an avoidance. It's still an intimacy disorder, right? That's why it's under the same umbrella. So depending on who you're in front of, that's why it switches. Um, What determines if you're either love avoidant or love addicted? Just the definition. So depending, some people identify more with one definition versus the other. And but I think I've not met anyone who doesn't ever switch to the other side, because depending on who's in front of you, you're going to pivot. If I meet someone who's securely attached and wants to get to know me, chances are I'm going to be more avoidant. As soon as we kind of get over the honeymoon period and things get real and like I actually have to settle in and let them in and share my life and share a little bit of like control or like intimacy, no, I don't have time for that. And if someone is in front of me and they propose, like they present a little bit of a challenge, there's a little bit of drama, there's a little bit of intrigue, um, you know, there's something that I can help them with, then chances are I can go back to more of a love addictive state. Okay, let me give this last point because I actually have a session after this. So for those of you who have been interested, I do private coaching. For a long time, I closed down my private options just because I didn't have the capacity for it. But if you are interested, I have a few slots open, and they're only have so many hours that I do it. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can go to blackgirlsheal.org/slash coaching or go to work with me on the Black Girls Heal website. And you can get started and snag those spots while they are there. They come with concierge support. So in addition to our sessions, you have full access to me in between our sessions to text with me, send voice notes. I'm a voice note queen. Chat about all the triggers and things that are coming up for you from the homework assignments that we talk about, and really just help you move forward. And my women who do my coaching programs, they get better really quickly. My private coaching programs too, because I incorporate the curriculum that's within the recovery school and other places too, depending on what it is that you're there to work on. So yeah, you can check that out, blackgirlsheal.org/coaching, and we'd love to work with you. So the last step, or the last number 3 before we get into the other 4, the other 2, is for you to look at making amends. Okay? Look at making amends and practicing some self-forgiveness. So chances are that once you start to do this process of learning about yourself and clearing out roots, you can start to look at previous relationships and previous things that have happened or didn't happen and start to feel some regret. So look back at some relationships and be like, man, that was a good relationship or that was a good friendship and I kind of messed that up. Or, wondering, shaming yourself for having those walls in the first place. Um, really being very critical of yourself for having gone through all these issues in the first place as well. And this is where it's really important for you to start practicing self compassion and some self acceptance. Shame is what got us into this place. Feeling not good enough, feeling as if we're broken, feeling as if, we're fatally flawed, feeling as if, we're the only ones who are going through these things. And so the more that we feed ourselves these stories, the worse off we feel. We actually, some of us need to learn how to not motivate ourselves by negative self talk. And we need to learn how to motivate ourselves by being kind to ourselves. And some of us think that by being kind to ourselves, we're actually going to be coddling ourselves. They're actually going to be enabling bad behavior. We've never had someone teach us and motivate us and push us via love. We've had people give ultimatums. We've had people say, you got to be strong, you got to keep going, you got to keep moving. We've had people say, this ain't nothing to cry about. We've had people say, um, you know, that they never did it that way. We've had people who have bragged about hustle. But how many of us, if we struggle with love avoidance, have had any voices who have been like, you know what? You may not have done what you wanted to do, but I'm still proud of you for showing up. I am still proud of you for doing the best that you could at the time. It doesn't matter what happened, and what matters is what you do with it, right? We haven't really had people talk to us with tenderness and with kindness and with self acceptance. And that's part of this journey, y'all. Part of this journey is learning how to replace that voice, that critical voice, with one of love. Because also, what leads us to being into love addictive relationships sometimes is we meet someone who is finally that kind voice for us. Many of us cannot separate from these addictive relationships because they are such an incredible amount of support. Even with the breakups, or even with the drama, and even with all the toxicity, and even with all the ups and downs, we still feel like, but this person understands me more than anybody else does. This person knows my story. This person has listened to me. This person has held me when I've been crying. I've held them while they've been crying. And so that bond is what makes you stay, because that type of kindness and love and tenderness is foreign, right? It's not common. But once you start to have that type of love be common in your life, once you start to have that type of love not be only channeled through one source, but you can get that type of love from other people, but most importantly from yourself, it stops being as fancy of a party trick. It stops being as novel and unique, because again, it's something that's commonplace in your life, right? So practicing some self-kindness and practicing some self-compassion and practicing self-forgiveness is really, really important throughout this process, because also as a love avoidant, you kind of have a tendency to find criticisms with other people as well. So you're very good at criticizing yourself, and you're also very good at criticizing other people. And you don't quite know the difference between, okay, these are standards. Like, it's totally okay and healthy and appropriate for you to have standards for your friendships and for your relationships. Some of us cross over into that to being picky as a defense mechanism. So it goes from being someone, oh, I really love how available they are, to, oh, they're a little bit too clingy. Or, you find something to push them away, or something that's annoying that stops you from moving forward. Okay. Let me know if that makes sense. Let me know if y'all have any questions about that in our last 2 minutes before we sign off. And let me know if this was helpful. If you don't have any questions, let me know if this was helpful. Um, and if you're excited that we're going to start talking about relationships again on the podcast, I guess that's the end. So that's it, y'all. I got a phone call. I'll see you in the next one. They say extremely helpful. Thank you. You're so welcome. Can y'all believe that? Can y'all believe that, YouTube? For those of y'all who are joining us live, so I got a phone call earlier, um, and the sound goes out on Instagram. So I had to restart it, and now I couldn't really close it off that way. the way that I can over here with y'all. But was this helpful for y'all on YouTube? Let me know in the chat if this was helpful for you. And let me know if you're excited about learning more about relationships. So I took a poll on Instagram asking would people like to talk more about self-love, like I've been focusing on the podcast for the last several months, or if you would like to focus on relationships, and the poll was overwhelmingly relationships. So that's what we're going to start focusing on now. So we are back to relationships and dating and love and partnerships. So thank you so much for joining. If you would like to get the rest of this roadmap, again, you can get it for free by going to blackgirlsheal.org/roadmap. And you can download it and get the roadmap to the 5 steps for love addiction, for love deprivation, roadblocks that come along. It's been expanded. If you downloaded it before, there's a lot more information now. So go ahead and check that out. All right. That's it. Y'all have a good one. I will see you in our next live. Bye, y'all.